Right, good morning. Welcome to the very first PGA webinar, PGA Learn from the Best webinar series. My name is David Colcliffe and I'm the Head of Member Education for the PGA, and it's my great pleasure today to welcome Pia and Lynn from Vision 54 to share some of their information with us over the next half hour. So just first of all, Pia, Lynn, can you hear me there? Are you all you ready and set?
Yeah.
Okay.
You sound great.
Okay, Lynn, that sounds excellent. Right, just to give everybody a little bit of a background to what we're trying to do, this is a 30-minute session. The idea of the webinars was to try to provide PGA members with access to real experts from various fields within the golf industry in order that they could learn from them and hopefully take some of the information away and earn more money at the end, hence the play on the title. We have a number of questions that I'm going to ask Pia and Lynn on PGA members' behalves, but also throughout this session, those of you who are attending will be able to ask questions online, and you'll see in your software panel at the bottom a little questions area where you can ask a question of Pia and Lynn, and towards the end of this session I'll be picking some of those to get some answers from Pia and Lynn as we go. So let's begin. And Pia and Lynn, you've just come off of quite a hectic couple of weeks, I guess. You've been to the Evian, the Open Championship at Royal St George's, and then up in Scotland at Carnoustie for the Ladies Open Championship. And I guess initially people might have thought of Vision 54 and seen Annika Sorenstam, but now with Ayam Isiata winning in France and Yanni Seng winning at Carnoustie, and I think you actually had a 1-2-3. You've obviously got a few very good players that you're working with. So just tell us a little bit about those people.
Yeah, and that's what's one of the things Lynn and I love about coaching, that we have different cultures, they're different people, they're men, women, and it's just so fun to try to support each player to find their best way of playing this game. So being at the tournaments and do coaching and observe them play is one of the favorite things that we do, because our main focus is to support any player to actually play better on the golf course, and in this case too in competitions.
Okay.
And I was going to say, actually it's been 4 weeks. We help a couple Scottish players, but one is Scott Jamieson, and he finished third in the Scottish Open, which got him into the Open Championship. He got the last spot by finishing third up there at Castle Stewart, and we did some coaching with him via text messaging that week at the Scottish Open. So
I think I not see on Twitter during the weekend you were in Scotland with another member of the European Tour, Mark Warren, is that right?
Yeah, we were up for the Women's Open, but Mark had read some of our books and knew we were in Scotland, so he asked if we had some extra time, and we did, and it was very, very enjoyable.
Oh, cool. And just explain to us, Yanni Seng won, I guess the youngest winner to win 5 majors at age just 22, but you also work with Brittany Lang, and Sophie Gustafsson also speaks very, very highly of you. How do you work with those three over the course of a season, and maybe in particular in the Open Championship this week?
Yeah, they are three are interesting cases, because we don't have one way how we work with players, because we go with what the player needs, and some players have a good team around them already, and we might just come in for a few things to help with 1 or 2 pieces of the puzzle, and with other players we do a lot. So in this case with Yanni Seng, she has a great support team, but at times she asked for our advice and our help, and she did last week, because for a few things she wasn't quite clear about how to manage herself on the golf course. And Brittany Lang, who finished second, we the last couple of years we worked with very consistently to help her with her swing, her practice, her management, all of those things. And Sophie Gustafsson, of course, being a Swede, used to coach her a lot, and nowadays she stays in touch and learns from the books, etc. So it's very, very different, and that's a very important point for us, that it's not just one way of doing things.
Okay. Now, I know that you in the work that I've seen you do, and in reading the books that you've produced, that you would see yourselves as complete game coaches or performance coaches as such. Can you just explain to us what you mean by that? And I was interested in a particular line in the book which talked about it said, our approach is simultaneously very specific and very improvisational. Can you just explain a little bit about what you mean there?
Yeah, I mean, well, David, we're interested in performance, so we're constantly looking at all the research out there on performance, and of course, then practice. Dr. Anders Ericsson's work and that kind of thing. So there's some very specific research out there about performance and now about practice. So we look at that research and then how to actually communicate that to the players.
Okay.
But the improvisational piece is how the player actually experiences that is going to be unique. Every player is unique.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, even with last week, Yana Sang has a very simple approach to the game, so you need to explain these things to her in a very simple way so she can get it. But it's a very specific way in terms of her keeping a performance state on the course.
Yeah, and the whole thing, like, I want to say that with what we can call ourselves performance coaches or game coaches, because what we find, we think in the game of golf, so much great has happened. We have like fantastic technical swing coaches. We have great putting short game coaches. We have great club fitting, fitness, many great sports psychologists. We have many fantastic specialists, but we found that many golfers on the club level and elite level need help to put these pieces of the puzzle together. And so we just think in the future we need to complement all the specialists with more game coaches, performance coaches, to help each player make it functional for them. So that's a very important area for us to do. And like Lynn just said, there are specific skills, but then you need to have the art piece in it to make it work for each one.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add is I think that it's good to know the science, and as a golf coach or instructor, you need to actually look at the science, understand it, and know how you're going to use that in your teaching, but you also need to know how you're going to help with the art piece, which is the performance on a golf course. And, yeah. So.
And I know, and I do love this. We use this at the PGA here when we're talking to the assistant professionals about the art of coaching. The analogy that you were certainly the first that I heard use it between gardening and coaching. I take this probably came from Lynn, seeing as you highlight yourself as a very keen gardener, Lynn. But just explain that to everybody, because those who haven't had the chance to share that.
Well, actually, I love to actually garden and get out there and do it, but Pia came up with this garden method many years ago when she was head of the Swedish players and teams.
Yeah, I mean, we're a group of coaches working together, and this kind of grew out of it. But it was to make the point that, as golfer and playing golf, we aren't machines. I mean, sometimes we can look at angles and numbers and make it look like machines, but the truth is it's not. So the garden metaphor is just to get a little balance to it all. I mean, and there's so many points to be made, like, flower growing, you can't force it to grow. It's an important tournament this week. I want it to grow now. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It's such a, you use the science, but then you need to have the art, how much water, how much nurture it, and help them grow on their own. So you can do so many examples of how everybody is unique and everybody's different, and it just gets clear what coaching skills we need to be able to get the whole flower bed to grow, and they're all going to be different.
I was just going to say, actually, back in Phoenix, I have some bamboo around a pond here in our garden, and bamboo is a funny plant because it doesn't come up for a long time. So you plant it and you're waiting for it to come up, and it may take a long time, like years, and then all of a sudden it shoots out. And that's sometimes how it is when you're coaching a player, is that you're putting in a lot of work, and that player is actually progressing and they're getting better at a lot of things, but you don't see it yet in performance. And I'll just say why I'm saying this is last week Brittany Lang was a great example. She's been working on these skills for a couple of years, and even this spring and early summer we've been seeing a lot of progress, and so has she. And but hasn't really shown up in the scores or finishing in the top 10. And last week that bamboo it sprouted. And you can never force that to happen, but you just keep going back and being very specific to each flower, each plant, what it is that they need to grow.
Cool. I think that's a really great analogy and one to sort of take away and use as people see fit. But just love it, especially as a keen gardener myself now. It just hits home so well that some things work, some things don't, and you just got to understand each individual, how they grow and how they are best positioned to flourish. I just wanted to move on to. Yeah, go, sorry, Lynn.
I was just going to say to those coaches out there, I mean, we all make mistakes. I've overwatered a few plants and killed them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's part of the learning.
Absolutely. I just wanted to move on to your to your books. I mean, in the last few years, you've obviously produced Every Shot Must Have a Purpose, The Game Before the Game, and now just come out your latest book, Play Your Best Golf. Can you just talk us through very briefly the idea behind the book and the main sort of theme, the key themes that you would see that are of benefit to PJ members?
Yeah, I mean, our latest book now, Play Your Best Golf Now, we're very excited about them. And there are specifically 8 skills that we are writing about. And it's what we call 8 essential playing skills that you're going to complement your technique with. Because we find some of the players, they might have pretty good clarity what they need to do technically, and they have the teacher helps them, but then the rest is kind of a blur. So when we looked at all the things that happens to players performing that are more physical, mental, emotional, social aspects of the game, we realized that there are some things that keep reoccurring. So these 8 skills are kind of 8 skills that we think any golfer on the planet could use, and this can improve the golf game. So it's that's what the whole book is about. We look forward to seeing how it's going to help both teachers and players.
Yeah, and I just would add too that we said this to Mark Warren on Saturday that he's often looked at some of the mental, emotional, social skills as just kind of fluffy, like he's not known how to do them. And when we read the book, and then we went through some practice and coaching with him on Saturday, we could start to see that they're actual skills that he needs to practice. They're skills just like learning to grip the club or get the ball on plane or any skill that needs to be practiced. And he said he liked it because it took out all those kind of like fluffiness to something that was a really specific plan on how to get better at those things.
Okay, cool. Well, it was interesting. One of the areas that where I see a big difference in what the two of you put across compared to so many instructors is this the emotional, the social, the spirit of the game side, which is potentially not quite as to the fore with so many other player instructors and coaches out there. I'm really interested in, you work with a lot of men, you work with a lot of women, and you obviously through your golf school you're working with handicapped golfers, but you're also doing a lot of work on tour. With looking at that emotional and that's the social side of your coaching philosophy, and thinking back to a few years to a US PJ teaching summit I went to where I think Dr. Dick Coop told us to go away and read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus as part of our coach development, which I did. Do you see any differences in the emotional and the social aspects of your coaching philosophy when you're dealing with the men versus the women?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the answer to that is both a yes and a no. It's no in the sense is that we believe, if you start to label players, I have a female student, I have a male student, I need to act differently, then we're in trouble, because we need to really look at everybody's unique. But then it is a yes too, because when you study sociology and from our experiences, I mean, there are some differences that often occur. I mean, for example, very often the men, it takes them much longer to be vulnerable and realize that there might be some mental, emotional skills that are needed. Mm-hmm. And it's very often that many of the women players have more discomfort competing because of the social comparison and etc. So it's very helpful to understand some of the things just through the history of times, how we have developed a little differently, and have that in the back pocket, just so as a teacher, coach, I can find a way of communicating that really matches the student. So, I had my first aha, because I'm obviously a female player, but I grew up with two older brothers. I learned, I learned to be in sports very early on. But when I one winter was helping the top juniors in Stockholm in Sweden many years ago, I would have the girls back on Tuesday evening and the boys on Thursday evening. So when I came to the boys' practice, they were already practicing when I came and had competition inside, hitting signposts and testing different shots. But the evening when the girls were practicing, that never happened. They were sitting waiting for me, and they wanted to talk about the movie they'd gone to or the new shoes they had bought. But I just knew that we just did that for a couple of minutes, because it's important for them to feel camaraderie and just being together. And then after that, they practiced just as hard as the guys did. Because I would have said, like, stop being silly, go and practice, you're not committed. They would lose the joy of the game. So that was, and things like that happens all the time. So it is very, very good knowledge to have, and just as a foundation of communication.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We were chatting with Sean Foley at the at Royal St. George, and he said, he said it's interesting because he feels that he's a very well-rounded, complete game coach, but a lot of the guys that he coaches don't want to be vulnerable. And so he'll often give them our book, or as a way to kind of introduce them to some of these subjects, so he can open the door to get to talk about it. The spirit of the game piece, or even their emotional post-shot reactions and how they behave on the golf course that way. But he said, he goes, some of the guys I work with, it's tough for them to be vulnerable.
And in terms of your background in that, Peter and Lynn, Peter, you just related to, obviously, just the observational and experiential learning that goes with teaching and working with men and women. Have you got any really good sources of information that you could point PJ members to, people that you've learnt from, or books or websites that you've learnt? Clearly, they're all going to go out and buy your book if they've not already got it. But where do you guys learn your stuff from?
Well, it's interesting. Actually, I learned the foundation from it when I was, working in Sweden, and through the Swedish Sports Federation. We had a lot of seminars and education around it, but it wasn't from books. It was from different lectures.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, men are from Mars and women from Venus is one of them. Is very good. But I think if you just do search on the internet, I know there's some other titles. I just don't remember them on top of my head, but it's just very useful so we can learn to be good teachers, coaches for any kind of golfer.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I was in a similar situation. I have two older brothers, and a father who is very competitive, so I learned how to be competitive early on, just like Pia. But where I learned a lot of this was from a lady who did this in business and leadership training, and so again, I learned a lot of this, and as Pia did it, from lectures and from seminars.
Okay.
But I do encourage, the coaches listening in, that they do research some of the sociological aspects of what they're doing with the coaching. And also, I want to add, it's a communication piece, that no matter if you have a man or a woman in front of you, that you learn how to pace and lead, and learn some good listening skills, because it's asking questions that you know what to do, and then how to pace that player, and then where to lead them.
Okay. Let's just move on to one other area which came out in your new book, which I think some people may be very familiar or be familiar with Vision 54 and what that stands for, but it would be good to go over that very briefly again, Pia and Lynn. But also within the book there is a My 54 and a Not 54 that you now reference, which I think is new in terms of the progression of the three books. Could you just explain a little bit about the Vision 54, My 54, Not 54, and again how PJ members may want to try to use that in their coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. the foundation of our name, Vision 54, 54 of course stands for making 18 birdies. But the main part is that any kind of coaching we do, we want to look at possibilities. Instead of looking at limitations and all of that, we always want to look at what can this player do, what are the possibilities, and we want to encourage everybody to go towards that. So the 54 is to look at possibilities. What would it, what would make it more likely to shoot 54 or lower? So the 54 is more a metaphor for your potential, your possibilities. So that's the background of the name. But with the My 54, Not 54, we've done this now for a few years and we had absolutely great success with it. So the My 54 is for each golfer to be very clear about what they do when they play great. We meet very few golfers when we ask them, so okay, we know these things are going on and you want help, but please tell me, when you do play well for a few holes or 9 holes or whatever it is, what are the things that happens? And most golfers go absolutely blank, and we think it's a very big mistake because we all are going to have a unique way how we play great. So if I as a golfer don't even know what that is, it's hard to get there. So with any golfer, we want them to have clarity. What is it in anything? What about their routines? What are they aware of while they're swinging or stroking the putt, the warm-ups? If they're more quiet between shots, or talk to their playing partners, or, anything that. So if they do that for a couple of months, they're going to have some common denominators about the My 54.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, I'll go to Mark 1 on Saturday. We were talking about Sergio not hitting a lot of balls now before he goes out to play. I mean, he does some warm-up somewhere else, but he doesn't go to the range. And Mark was just saying, he's had a couple of incredible rounds, course records and things where he hasn't had much of a warm-up himself. And he's like, yeah, that really is part of my 54. He said, but I've never really thought about it. He goes, I've been taught that I'm supposed to have this arduous warm-up. And then as we kind of pointed it out, like, you just told us that when you play your best, you have a very limited warm-up. You just hit a few balls and get warmed up instead of going into technical preparation. So here's a guy who's already been successful, and he's not explicitly clear about his My 54. So that's part of that. Then the Not 54 is simply that we all have very consistent ways in which we get in our own way or we mess up. And we need to take a look at that and be honest about it, because as we have tendencies with our greatness, we have tendencies with our goof-ups. and it's just to get very clear with that. And the research says that we're very consistent with how we do them. So again, taking notes or getting feedback, this is where coaching comes in, getting feedback from observation on the golf course and so forth. So it's that you know how you are when you're great, and you know how you are when you mess up.
I mean, this is one of these areas I wish myself I knew this when I competed, because when I really look at that, I'll just give it as an example. When I get stressed, and it doesn't matter if it's because I'm nervous or I'm worried or something annoys me, whatever the context is, me and everybody else still has the same thing to go to. So mine is always my temper gets too quick, and I start thinking too much and like worry about things in the future. I mean, I was like that when I was 6 years playing golf, so I'll be like that when I'm 90. So it's just being clear, because when the things are clear, then the whole point is just to catch ourselves earlier during the round, because the Not 54 is going to show up our entire life. But the greatest players, and I mean, Annika is still to this day the best player ever, to be honest and aware when it happened, and then have the guts to coach yourself while playing. So we just want, because many players actually think there's something wrong with them when they get in their own way. And that makes it really hard. What we find is just natural as a human being, as a golfer, to get our own way. But it's just recognizing it and then knowing what can I do to shift back towards the My 54.
Okay.
So we even have players in warm-up. Anya Satt has done this several times in warm-up. So she's leading a tournament on Sunday morning. And then just say, okay, today is a day I might get really nervous, and I'm on the range going to just go through what it feels like in my body and then knowing what to do about it. And for her, it often is that she gets more tension in her left arm. And also, she starts thinking too much. She just gets very clear about when that happens playing, what are things I can do to get more present in my body instead of thinking, and what can I do to lessen the tension in my arms. So, and we found that for the elite players and for the club golfers, it's hugely important to be a better player on the golf course.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing because it's relevant to Yanni's win on Sunday, is that we've helped her now last year at the British Open at Royal Birkdale and then this year at Carnoustie. And Sunday, of course, she was pretty nervous, and her swing coach said, well, don't be nervous because everybody else is nervous. But that doesn't really help. On one hand, I mean, it might help you with your attitude about being nervous, but it's not specific enough. So we had given her a small card that gave her very specific things that were part of her My 54, Not 54. They were the exact same things that she used last year to win at Royal Birkdale as they were on Sunday a couple of days ago at Carnoustie. And that was, when she starts feeling nervous, her posture changes. Her head goes down, and she starts having a lot of internal self-talk. So it's to keep her head up and her chin up and walk with better body language. And then to smile, because that loosens up all the muscles in her face and her shoulders. And if she's really nervous, then to sing Taiwanese children's songs between shots.
Okay.
And so that, I mean, is again very specific skills versus just saying, oh, don't be nervous because everybody else is nervous.
Okay.
That's not specific enough. And we've just found that this is a way for people to get very clear what they can actually do.
And actually, after we've done this for a while, when we meet with friends that are sports psychologists, they've taught us that this is actually called paradoxical intentions.
Okay.
We didn't know it had a fancy name, but
I think My 54, Not 54 is a probably a better phrase for that than paradoxical intentions. You mentioned Yanni saying, and I mean it was at the weekend. She won her 5th major, and I think she's now the youngest player ever to win 5 majors at age 22. And I guess she's halfway to Annika's record of 10. She started. I did a little bit of research before I came on here this morning. She started when she was 6 years of age. Came to the US, I think, when she was 12, and was winning national and sort of continental championships by the age of 14. In the UK, and I think probably across Europe at the moment, there's quite a big emphasis on allowing for coaches to allow children to experience as many sports as possible early on in their development, and diversify, if that's the right term, in a number of sports, rather than specialize from a very young age, with the things like injury and burnout being cited as the reasons not to specialize. But it appears to me, and I think to others, that there are still quite a few of the top players in the world now, and specifically those coming out of the Asian countries, who quite clearly seem to be specializing very early. And I just wondered, with your view of the world, and especially on the LPGA Tour, where you've got such a range of nationalities, how do you both see this? I mean, do you worry that people are being told to not specialize early, or do you see that as a good thing?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, I started out just coaching Swedish players, and Lynn started out coaching only Americans, and now both of us coach players from all around the globe, and it's been one of the greatest, educations that I've ever had. So the way we look at it, from being very diversified to being specialized, we actually see both could work. And it all depends from culture and so many different circumstances. And we just say on the upside of both of them, the ones that diversify, which is more common in Great Britain and Sweden and those countries, is, you see the players that they might take them longer to be good, but when they get good, it's very sustainable. It can be well-rounded, and have different roles in their life, and can keep the spirit of the game, and they could be in it for a very, very long time with a very solid foundation. And on the positive side for those who specialize early is they can get good a lot faster. Might be shorter lasting, and they might say, okay, I'm done with this, and I'm going to move on with my life and do other things, and they're more, have more compartments to their life and what years they're going to stop doing what. And so, I mean, so we see that the whole thing, and when it's done well, both can work very good.
Okay.
And
yeah, and I think, you know, again, it goes to understanding who's in front of you. You know, is this a player that if they specialize too early, or is this a human being who if they specialize too early, they're going to get burnt out? I'll just say that with those that do specialize too early, I mean, we're amazed, and this is not a judgment, it's more an observation, but we're amazed at just some of the basic social skills that they have to learn. Like they've never done anything outside of golf. So I mean, here they are, they're millionaires, and they don't know how to book a ticket, or they don't know how to cook, or those kind of things. So they need to learn some basic life skills, even though they're great at this specialty called golf. And again, I mean, that's been really interesting for us to come in and help them with that. And as Pia said, I mean, one of the things, when we had a conversation with a player last year that she said she can't wait till she's #1 in the world, she's done it, and then she can retire at 30 and get on with her life.
Okay.
And that was just an interesting view of her life, you know, like, and we tried to explain to her that she might not reach #1 in the world if she doesn't learn some of these basic life skills now.
But actually, it's the case with these players. She's getting, you know, just a few other dimensions, and she realizes she needs that to reach her goal. But the topic there is so interesting because, like the bad side is that the one that specialized early, they can end up being burned out and being very unhappy in life because it's so single. It's just one track. But then we can see some of the players that do the diversification and allow it to take a long time, that some of them get so unclear what to focus on that they keep making all these detours, and they just keep trying, and I'm really tired today, I should go and play tennis instead of practicing golf. And they can have all these excuses sometimes. You want to kick their butts. so for us it's more a sliding scale, and we you know, sometimes it's somewhere in between that we think might be a very good mixture. But you know, you mentioned Janne Seng earlier, and she's absolutely gone being specialized early, but she's still so aware, and she's still very young, but she's very open and wants to make sure she has, you know, fun and a balance in life, and she's taking English lessons. So she's one of those who specialize early, but is smart enough to make sure she has things in place so it can end happy and she can reach her big goals.
I mean, yeah, and I'll just, one more thing I'd like to just add is that, you know, we know from the research from Dr. Anders Ericsson about myelination and all the skills and all that. I mean, that's the benefit of specialization. Some of these players, they have incredible golf swings and ball striking skills, and, you know, their skills are myelinated. And they have great golf swings at the age of 15. But, you know, then whether they can actually go out and play golf, I'll just say what I'll get to my point is that we find that they've myelinated the skills, but being present to every shot is sometimes a deficit.
Okay.
That they've practiced so much and they've specialized so early that they certainly have good skills, but do they have the ability to be present to every shot?
Okay.
Just
Great. I mean, just on that, and just before we come to sort of certainly my last question, Mike Rooney, who's on the webinar, has just asked, "What do you think of the golfing machine?"
Yeah, you know what? Actually, once upon a time, I was certified in the golfing machines. I've been everything from swing the club head to Manuel de la Torre to the golfing machine. So, in our view, that we like to be educated in many different swing theories because we get players that use different swing theories, and in our teaching in our golf schools, we are agnostic when it comes to technical because there's so many different techniques to work with different players. So we're very open, and we just want the players to have a technique that they believe in, and it's fit for their bodies, so that the body-swing connection is a match. So and therefore we have very good cooperation with very many different swing teachers, and we plan to stay that way.
Okay. One of the main, the sort of final questions, and the question that I'm going to be asking anybody who comes on to our Learn from the Best series is, and I guess this relates to one of the other sides we haven't touched on today, is that you had the #1 golf school in the US and still one of the top golf schools in the US. And could you just share with us one thing that you've both learned that has enabled you to earn more money from what you do?
Yeah, we talk about spirit of the game for the players. We think as a coach, you need to figure out what your spirit of coaching is. Like, what is it that really you're passionate about, and then go for it. And I'll just say, early on when we started Vision 54, we were told, ladies, you really shouldn't do this. You're not gonna make it, because you need to do more technique in your golf skills, because that was kind of what was happening out there. And then others said, really, you two should just focus on the women's game and do women's golf schools. And we're like, we're not passionate about that. And we went for our passion. And, when you read the book Good to Great, he talks about the hedgehog effect, which is finding your passion, what you're great at, and then staying with that, and then making sure that it makes economic sense. So we knew what we wanted to do, and we stuck with it. And we kind of had the long-term view of it, that it wasn't going to happen overnight, but that we were going to stay with it. And we've been very fortunate. But I'll just say this, is that we've also been very honest with the product that we offer. So even though we know a lot about technique, people don't come to our golf schools to beat a lot of balls and work on technique for 3 days. They come to learn more about performance and playing the game and some of these other skills that complement their technique. And again, like, we both know a lot about club fitting. I used to do club fitting on the road for Titleist, but when people come to our golf schools, we outsource that club fitting, because it's not something that we can do the very, very best at, but we outsource it. So I think it comes back to just knowing what you're passionate about, and then deciding, I'm going to do that.
Okay, cool. Peter, did you have anything to add to that, or is it?
No,
is that from it?
I think it's a very good question, because we get emails with questions like that. We even get emails like, how do you become a tour coach or famous coach and all that. And I always feel if you start with that main intention, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think players know when you're there for the right reason. That you study, you work hard, you decide what your passion is, what you want to be great at, and you do it with very pure intentions like that, and make, of course, a plan so you can still make a living. But the focus needs to be on the service you give the players and the values they have, and then that to make money is, of course, to make good decisions, but it becomes the side product. Being well known is something that I don't know if you can plan that to happen. You just do what you do and trust that it's going to be important for golfers in the future.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that if you in this case, if you specialize with what you're really passionate about, and then you're honest with outsourcing what things you don't do, you're just going to build a great customer base.
Yeah, and one thing that we've learned that we have to check up on, like, every month of the year, is not to go too wide. So that we know there's so many more things we could do in golf, but if you want to be great at something, you can't do everything. So we right now have really focusing on, helping golfers attain these skills to complement the technique, because we feel it's very needed around the world, and we put most of our emphasis there. So it doesn't mean other things aren't interesting and good, but we just need to be, I often say that to players too. You can do anything, but not everything. So what is most important is, like, stay with it and go deep with it.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Pierre and Lynn, I think we're coming to the end of our time together today. Thanks so much for taking the time to share some of your thoughts with us. My apologies to anybody who asked a question that I didn't get a chance to ask to the ladies. But if people out there want to see you very soon, Pierre and Lynn, I understand you're in the Czech Republic in about 2 weeks' time. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to do actually 4 days of training down there, and it's going to be really fun. So we hope to do something in Europe every year, and of course we do many things in Phoenix, Arizona. That is our home base, but vision54.com, you can get all the information out.
Okay, brilliant. And hopefully next summer when you're over again for the Open Championships, we can maybe try and get something organised here in the UK, perhaps here at the PJ National Training Academy.
Yeah, we'd love that. That'd be great.
Okay, so thank you very much on behalf of PJ members who've attended today. This interview will be online for people to listen to again or listen to for the first time in the next couple of days. So in closing, thanks Pierre, thanks Lynn. Many success for the rest of the year, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks to all who called in and listened in. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay.